So let's get to the heart of what this session is really all about. Let's meet our panelists. We have three of them joining us today. Lindy, unfortunately, was not able to join at the last minute. But why don't we open it up and have the alumni introduce themselves, tell us what you were doing prior to Sloan and what you're doing now. Why don't we go in the order of the slides?
Okay. So thank you very much, Pamela. My name is Toluwaseun Adesina. I'm originally from Nigeria. I am part of class of SF MBA 2022. And prior to Sloan, I was in Nigeria doing infrastructure finance. So I've done I have a background in investment banking actually, but my last job was I was one of four pioneers that set up a company called InfraCredit, and the company was essentially a credit enhancement guarantee service provider that is looking and focusing on infrastructure finance in the country. I led origination and structuring for the company. And after Sloan, I am currently working with Citibank, actually, of their investment finance team, supporting clients with credit structuring and financing solutions.
Great, thank you. Sheila, are you with us?
I am with you. Unfortunately, I'm still not able to get the camera to work, the video, so I do apologize. Can you hear me?
We can hear you fine. Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you. So I'm Sheila Ruwaili. I'm from Saudi Arabia, and I work for Saudi Aramco as a Senior Vice President in Finance. I'm also the Chief Executive Officer of one of Aramco's wholly owned subsidiaries. It is called Wisaya Global Investment Management Company. Our company is responsible for managing and investing the pension funds of Saudi Aramco, the affiliates and subsidiaries. We are about 100 people, and we apply best practices in finance and investment and managing the portfolio. Nice to meet you all, and apologies again.
Thank you. And James?
Good afternoon. So I am an SF 2019. My current role is the CFO for a really interesting medtech startup called Lifelight. We use AI and your phone camera to detect blood pressure remotely without contact. So it's a really exciting deep tech startup. Prior to Sloan, my background in engineering, and then my profession is in finance. I trained with PwC here in London. And I had a long journey working in finance prior to joining startup, which is at a company called Compare Europe Group. It's a consumer credit comparison platform. And after that, fintech, it's when I joined MIT Sloan in 2018.
Good, thank you. So you all had successful careers before coming to Sloan. What led you to pursue an MBA, and why MIT Sloan? I'm interested in hearing from all of you.
Yeah, I'll take that one first. I think MIT obviously have a very well-renowned reputation for technology, and of course, Sloan in particular is about management. For someone like myself with an engineering background as an undergraduate degree, it really made sense to excel sort of from growing up from a management perspective to take a year out and really learn and relearn everything and continue my growth journey. So I think applying to MIT Sloan seems for me a very natural step, going from an engineer to a finance person to a senior management position to really retrain. And I think in 2018, it was sort of the cusp of the beginning of significant technological change. A lot of the big data AI companies, ideas are beginning to form, and MIT Sloan was the place to go to learn not only the business side of things, but also from a technology perspective. And I met many undergraduates as well as graduate students who's working in startups at the forefront of the research in the space. So it was a perfect time to go. So for me, it really is both a training in management, but also about the application of the latest technologies.
Yeah, I think similar to James, I'm also looking for an opportunity to expand my perspective, right, beyond Nigeria. Initially, I wanted to, I also have a couple of entrepreneurial ideas that I was looking for an opportunity to brood a little bit and sort of like incubate them. And at the same time, the fact that the program is a one-year program was quite interesting for me, because it gives me an opportunity to step away from my day-to-day work and focus on study and networking, and then also not worry about having to take too long a break from your ongoing career, because market is going very fast and you don't want to miss out on those opportunities. So it gave me that balance. And I think, in fact, I used to say, I was thinking that Donna would be on the call. MIT was the only school I applied to. When I was looking for the MBA program, I'm like, look, if I don't get it, maybe I'll try again next time. So and luckily I got in, right, and the rest is history. So I also think that for me, the diversity the mix between that intersection between technology, innovation, and business was one of the fascinating aspects of the program for me, and that ecosystem at MIT. So the fact that you have an community engineering school where technology and research, right, development is going very, very fast. And you have, on the other side, you're able to learn management skills, and the two of them coexist together. That was really one of the catches, right? One of the things that attracted me to the program.
Thank you. And Sheila, how about you?
For me, it's maybe a little bit different. It's my second MBA. So I had my first MBA almost 20 years before this one. And, I was just in the middle of my career, or, advancing in my career. But I knew about the program from my peers and other executives in the company who were sponsored. Aramco sponsors one individual every year to the program. So the reputation for this program, the Sloan Fellows program, was really big in Aramco. And if you get selected, you will not at all waste, the opportunity. In 2017, I got lucky and I was selected for the program, and I was ready to jump at it, because even though I did have my MBA and I knew there could be a lot of areas where there's an overlap, but science does change. And the leadership skills require updating and require constant reflection, on the new environment, the new work environment. So I thought this is a good time for me to reset and get this, in the program, and try to benefit and get a new perspective on how you can manage processes, leadership, strategic thinking. And I was surprised to how much life has changed since my first MBA, to be honest.
Yes, that's a good point. I think about half of the students in the program usually have another advanced degree, and some of them may be MBAs that they received many years ago, and they're looking for a refresh and to update some of their skills. These are some of the topics that we'll be covering next. We'll go through the curriculum, the community. We'll talk about careers. And if we have time at the end, we'll take a couple of questions from the audience. So please continue to add your questions to the Q&A feature. Melissa and Rayvon will try to get to as many as they can, and we'll grab some for the end of the session as well. So as I mentioned, it's a flexible and customizable curriculum that allows you to kind of, create your own academic experience, and it provides lots of opportunities for practicing new skills. If you prefer to have a little more structure, we also have 7 certificates that are available to you. And for some of the alums, I guess I can give you a little update that the tracks, what we used to call tracks, and the certificates have kind of realigned, and their requirements have been more formalized to be consistent, and now they're all considered certificate programs, and you're allowed to do 2 certificates if you can fit all the required classes into your curriculum. But that you have lots of flexibility to customize. You can also use some of these certificate programs to provide a little more structure. The curriculum's focused on helping you make data-driven decisions and gives you lots of opportunity to practice new skills with our action learning labs. My question is, if someone has taken advantage of one of these certificates or previously a track, can you talk about your experience there? I don't know if James might have something to say. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'll also address one of the question on the Q&A that's been answered. Yusuf, you mentioned how many students, or you asked how many students came into the program to do a number of the entrepreneurial things. From my experience, many of my classmates in my year has been involved in one form or another. Certainly in my time, which is now coming up to 5 years, there is an amazing structure around not only the program, but the wider institute in terms of how we foster entrepreneurial spirit. So from the business school side, there are a number of programs starting from New Enterprises, which is a program to encourage people to come together, to form ideas, and then to execute on that. And then if I recall correctly, there's also eLab. My colleagues might be able to help me here. eLab is more actually putting into practice and working with established companies. Am I right? To join them on the entrepreneurial journey. And to the next step, you've also got iTeams, which is where professors or individuals at the institute have some brilliant research and ideas, and they needed someone from the business school to come in to help them launch their startup. Effectively, at every stage of the entrepreneurial journey, there's a program for it. And of course, not to mention there's the 100K program where so I say a program. It's run by the Entrepreneurship Club, where people with ideas can pitch their idea for the grand finale and grand prize of $100,000 support and investment. There are other smaller funds called Sandbox, and there's just so many of them. It will take me the entire session to name them and explain them. But what I'll say is there are just so many different opportunities to be involved with startups. Back to the main part of the question, which is the tracks and certificates. My year group was, I think, the first group at the Fellows program to launch to align the E&I track. So I focus on entrepreneurship and innovation. I have a certificate in that. And what that means is I have to specifically pick a number of courses that will contribute to the number of credits I needed for that specific specialization. So yeah, really enjoyed taking that particular track myself. I have other classmates, many of them had the foresight back in 2019 to really focus on sustainability. And I think that is continued to be one of the largest tracks that people follow. There are a number of others. What that means is you just have to tailor your program a little bit more than the sort of how I came into the program, a bit more carefree, not thinking about getting an additional certificate, only to realize I will fall into one of those. So I very much enjoyed it, and I certainly had a very wide-ranging entrepreneurial journey whilst I was at MIT.
Yeah, interesting, James. So if I can go next, I took the sustainability certificate, and it was quite exciting. It was an interesting experience because you get to take a couple of courses that are focused on the key challenges of climate change, poverty, and what have you. And I think you also get a chance to work on actual projects for specific, for companies, right, who come to, look for people to work on projects with them. I particularly worked on a project with Fidelity Investment. And what we were trying to do was to develop like a model that would help determine how green a green bond is. So the question we were trying to answer was, how green is a green bond? And very luckily for me, I had previous experience in issuing a green bond in Nigeria before I came to Sloan. So it was a natural fit for me, and I was allocated to that project team. And what that opportunity gave us, that project, gave us, was you get to work with real life cases, right? Real life projects that interest institutions in that space. And a lot of people working with, different other organizations in manufacturing, in sustainability implementation, and what have you. So it was a very, very helpful, very useful experience. But I didn't take too many certificates because I was impressed by a lot of the diversity of some of the courses, and I felt like I have too many interests that I needed to just pick. So I couldn't concentrate enough beyond that sustainability certificate here.
Yes, and that's, I think, important to know, is that you don't have to take a certificate. You can, like I said, you have all the flexibility to choose whatever electives you want to take. And you don't have to be in a certificate to take classes in those subject areas. Sheila, is
to your point, Pamela, yeah, I did not take certificates.
Oh.
There was so much, courses and programs I wanted to be exposed to, that I decided, not to focus on, a certain number of certificates, to the extent that I received to drop some of the courses that I had because I was,
you wanted to take everything.
So and that's really I think everyone had that struggle, which is how much can you take on, because you wanted to take in as much as you can. You wanted all the different courses, the professors. You just want to grab a lot and get the whole benefit of every program that your colleagues are complementing or are talking about. You feel left out, so at the same time you can see into when you go back, and you can imagine how much you can implement some of the ideas. So I thought, for me at my the stage in my career, I didn't want to focus on the certification, but on the actual content and the diversity of the program itself.
Right, great.
Can I just quickly add, I totally agree with what Sheila was saying. I would say there's so many exciting classes at Sloan and the wider institute for those of you who are interested in taking a class or two. And it's FOMO is very real at Sloan. And I was very fortunate. Some of the options I have chosen lent itself really well to one of the certificates. And I did only have to make one choice, and taking a really late class on, I think it's business law, which then enabled me to satisfy all of the requirements. So I didn't have to not take a particular class in order to get the certificate. But yeah, lots of people struggle with whether or not they want to do a certificate, or as Sheila said, there's just so many interesting things. One should never sort of necessarily stay on a particular plan if they have one. They should always have a plan, but many people change and decide to do other really interesting subjects and may not necessarily fit into a particular track.
Right. Once you get here and you see what the amount of resources and courses available to you, it can be a bit overwhelming. This is a diagram that just kind of outlines the program. As you can see, the orientation, there's a virtual orientation in April, and then in-person orientation in June. Classes start in June. You'll be taking your core classes over the summer, and electives will start in the fall. And here is just a few key features throughout each stage of the 12 months that you would be in the program. Just one a quick question, maybe we can answer quickly and move on to the next topic, but was there a favorite class or favorite faculty member that you may have had?
I can talk about a few. It's hard
okay.
to narrow it down to one, but I was taken by system dynamics. That class, is just out of this world. So dynamic, so interesting. It's an eye-opener to how you can model different scenarios in a different way, non-linear way. And of course, the professor doesn't need my testimony. So that was one that really stayed in my mind, and I always, think of to modeling or to applying, a different methodology to how we want to forecast and how we want to preempt situations. The other one was the game theory course. And again, I felt it's a new concept that I haven't been exposed to before, and it just was one of the most interesting concepts for me. And since then, I have been doing more reading on the topic. I find it fascinating. So yeah, you get across, new concepts, new methods, process. Maybe in your current role, you did not get exposed to. But even in the mandatory courses, not the electives, Sloan has put together a suite of courses and classes that expose you to almost everything. You get, at least they put you on the track, and then it's your decision if you want to go deeper and take the advanced courses, or you feel that you have you want to explore something else. This is what I like about it. So you get a flavor of almost everything, whether it's process, data analysis, economics, accounting. It's a very, very well thought of program, and very holistic in terms of leadership and development.
Right.
If I can go next, I enjoyed so it's a very difficult question to answer actually, because there are so many nice, good And most of the faculty members are, they are good in their own rights, and they are very committed to what they are teaching, and also committed to development of the students. But I think one of the courses that sort of like, was very interesting for me was strategy by Professor Semester. Right, Dr. Semester. And it was a very interesting course for me because it was new, and I get to apply every day I go to the class. I get to apply what they're teaching, or the frameworks that were being taught, right? I was able to apply it directly to what I was facing in my previous job. So it's like you're going to see this, like a lot of validation, a lot of questioning, a lot of you get to you have a direct application to every if you have any startup experience, or you're even working for a developer or a growing organization. So for me, it was a very eye-opening opportunity, like our class with Professor Semester. I think there's another course that I took. It was even an executive elective, which is like a two-day course that I took in negotiation, where it was a completely different perspective, like a fresh perspective in negotiation. Everybody thinks that when you go to negotiate, you want to win the other party. But the framework taught in the class was that, it's about creating value for the other party. And I think if you approach a negotiation with that mindset, it's going to change a lot, right? It's a game changer for me. And I think I see opportunity to apply that principle, right? Every day, henceforth, since then, yeah.
Was that the negotiation class listed here in under the independent activities period during January? Is that the one you took?
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. For me, I was going to approach this question with, do you love your left hand more or your right hand? Everything at Sloan is always very exciting. It's very hard to pick. I'm just very glad that neither of my colleagues have picked the one I was going to suggest. I think for me, given my aim of coming to Sloan was to build softer skills, I think my favorite class and one of my favorite professors is the strategic leadership communication. That's with Professor Neil Hartman. It's amazing that people like ourselves at a sort of senior leadership position sometimes, well, I think we're all fair to be scared to make presentations in front of a lot of important people. And I think the idea of through practice, you can get better at this is super important. And that was one of the class that has taught us techniques, as well as just giving us the opportunity to see how others succeed and fail and learn. That was, to me, an extremely important class to take seriously. So yeah, that would be my recommendation.
Great, thank you. So moving on, I spoke earlier about the community that you will be joining here at Sloan. You'll be part of the Sloan Fellows MBA community, obviously, as well as the wider Sloan community with all the other programs, but you also have all of the resources available at MIT. I think it was mentioned that you can take classes across campus at MIT. There are also clubs and conferences that are another really fun way to get connected with students from across campus and to broaden your network. Can some of you speak to how you may have built community either within the Sloan Fellows cohort or across campus?
Sure, I've had a fairly diverse experience there. I always like telling people that we started with a class of 111, and by the time we left, there were and then plus the significant others. But by the time we left, there are significantly many more newborns and babies in our cohort. So it's only ever growing cohort. In terms of just the wider community, I really took advantage of two things. I spent some time with clubs and societies outside of Sloan. I was involved with the MIT driverless car racing project. I also cross-registered and took a class over in Harvard. So the MIT ecosystem spans much beyond Sloan itself. I was particularly proud of being part of the MIT FinTech Conference. That is the biggest student-led FinTech conference globally, I believe. And it is all done by enthusiasts within the Sloan School and others within MIT. Diversity and inclusion, that you can look at this panel and you can already see, you know, we are all passionate advocates for the program. There are many sort of both structured and unstructured ways of us reinforcing that idea. We often work with others, and we have oh guys, I forgot what's the every week there is a new theme. I cannot remember what that is.
A C function?
C function and different community, different groups from we have a very large Japanese cohort in my year, and I think that is normally the case. They hosted their own Japanese night. Europe clubs together and had I don't know if they had the same t-shirt in your year, but a Mona Lisa in a sort of very cool painting style. So every nationality, ethnicity, gender, every kind of DE&I is represented one way or another, and the platform is shared for us to share our experiences with one another. I think I'll pass on to my colleagues. I don't know if any of you want to talk about Muddy Talks.
I was going to remind you, James, of the Muddy Talks. These were the highlights of the week, actually. For some background, there's a pub in the school called the Muddy Pub. And the Muddy Talks just, I think, historically started where people gather in the pub and they talk about. Sloanese took it to the second level and they called it Muddy Talk in the school. So at the end of the week, I believe every Friday or Thursday night, we all gather in one of the big lecture halls, and one individual would talk about themselves from a personal perspective. So they take us, their life journey from childhood until the day that they came to the program, sharing with us their memories, their challenges, happy moments, sad moments, very emotional and very vulnerable experience. And it brought us really. But I want to take a step back and talk about how the program itself was designed to create this community that will stay with you for, I believe, for life. Because I did meet a Sloan Fellow that was from SF91. And my question, are you still in touch with your cohort? And they were about, I don't know, maybe about 50 people, he said. He said, yes, we are still in touch. We talk. We have a WhatsApp group. In their days, they didn't have a WhatsApp group, but they kept in touch through, I don't know, phone calls, other arrangements, but they did keep in touch. And he said, in every country I visit, fact, one, two, or whoever is in that country, and we get together and, we just feel that time stood still. When I saw him, it was my first month maybe. Now, after almost 6 years, I can totally relate. Our friendship is, very strong. There's this between the 110 people who were in the program. That has not changed. When we went to the reunion, five-year reunion last June, it was as if, it was yesterday. We were together in the classroom just, a few days before. So unlike any other program, or your typical, executive program, this program is designed to build the bond and the connections. And to James's point, families are bonded together. You celebrate, the birthdays. You see the families growing. There are a lot of for the whole family. there are even classes that are offered to the spouses. So a lot of effort is exerted to ensure that this bond is built at all levels. So you see the spouses, greeting each other in the reunion just as warmly as we, the Sloan Fellows, are, towards each other. So I think this is, what I can describe the community with. It's a community for life.
Yeah,
I was going to add, I've been to more birthday party in that 1 year. I'm sure that would be the same for my colleagues than all the years before in my life. So I'll pass it to my colleagues.
yeah, interesting. And to your point, right? So I came into Cambridge with my wife and my son, right? So I came with my family, and I was making a joke at some point that my wife knows more people, right, in the cohort than myself, right? So it's like you have, that opportunity to network. And I think the opportunity they gave to significant others, right, to also use the resources and use the facility is quite helpful as well. So I was part of the community committee in my cohort. And you'll be amazed how much of input we were able to make even into what goes into some of the events and programs and that we had. We had this slogan that no fellow is left behind, right? Which everybody talks about from time to time. And what that does is that you have a sense of responsibility to look out for one another. And you do that, in every aspect, in your studies, in your family, in getting people to settle down. I remember how, a colleague actually, right, picked me from the airport. And the same way people come in to even help you with your home chores and all of that. So I think it was a very, very good community. And the diversity is also very important, right? The fact that everywhere you turn to, you can see someone who looks like you. And you can also see, have that peep into how other people with other backgrounds, how they think. And that helps. It's very enriching, ultimately. Yeah.
Right. So you're not only part of the community while you're here on campus, but as mentioned, you join the MIT Sloan alumni community, the MIT community, and there are clubs in, over 95 different countries around the world. I want to get to the careers because this is one of the main reasons why you're here in the program. The Career Development Office will start partnering with you as soon as you are in the, I think, April orientation, or at least by the time you come to campus, you will have had sessions with the Career Development Office. They offer executive coaching. They will connect you to this wider network of alums. They will kind of help you whether you are a sponsored candidate or if you're an entrepreneur or looking to pivot in your career. They're there for you. They'll offer you the support. And because the MBA program is a STEM program, you also can take advantage of the OPT after you graduate. Could each of you talk about your experience working with the Career Development Office and how were they or the executive coaches able to support you in your transformation?
So maybe I can go quickly. So I particularly found the executive coach and that program. I found it very useful. And that program actually starts before you even got on the campus, right? So you have this 360 degrees leadership assessment that you have to administer some questions on people you've worked with in the past, both at your senior supervisors or people you've led within teams. And that sort of like was an eye opener for me, right? It opened my eyes to a lot of blind spots in my leadership, style within my team, and also the way that was about the first time I got a very honest feedback from even my supervisor, who was the CEO of the company at the time. So it was a very, very interesting journey, and the coaches are so skillful, because they've been doing this for a long time, to dissect the outcome of that report during the briefing in a way that gives you action points, things to work on while you're on campus, right? And so that's the starting point of your leadership journey within the school. I found it very useful. Then the other point I wanted to make is around the extended networking. So I'm still leveraging trying to leverage the alumni community here in New York, in New Jersey, and everywhere. And I think that's very useful. It's very useful to speak to someone who graduated like 30 years ago, and there is this togetherness, like I was there. How can I help, and all of that, and that's very useful. Thanks.
Anyone else have anything to offer?
For me, I had the executive coaching experience a few months before the end of the program. I found it very useful because it helped me to plan for rejoining the workforce. I wasn't looking for a job sponsored by my employer, but being away for almost a year, you feel a little bit anxious of reintegrating, of rejoining, dealing with the new challenges. So I found that very, very useful. I also took advantage and addressed some of my previous challenges when I was on the job prior to the program. So I got a very good advice and insights that when I went back to my job, I was able to implement immediately, and it stayed with me, in terms of managing your, time, dealing with conflicts, for example, or adverse situations, and so forth. Real life situations that we always encounter in our day-to-day job. It was very helpful for me to take some good and impartial advice.
Yeah, for me, I agree with what has been said. I think the executive coaching was particularly interesting. It's a lot of self-reflection, retrospectives, and understanding about yourself. Really is something I've not experienced before. That being having a third party, either as an executive coach as well as your classmates, in particular your teammates, reflecting to you some of the things that you really perhaps never want to hear. So I think that was a really important learning experience that's fairly unique and that's tailored for the Sloan Fellows. In terms of the CDO, the Career Development Office, I found them very useful to get advice, but at the same time, managing my own personal career development, I've had 10 plus years work. What I wasn't looking for as a sort of cookie cutter approach. Yes, we all get an MBA, but we all have very unique, I would say 111 in my class, unique profiles. So to rely on the CDO to sell us as 111 same cookie cutter product wasn't perhaps what I was looking for, or what others are looking for. So what I found particularly useful from the CDO, in particular, Gail, who's the believe she's the director of the CDO, really looking after the senior cohort, is the advice, is the thinking. It's again looking at ourselves as a unique individual. What do we have to offer future employers from a senior leadership position, as opposed to, hey, McKinsey, he's 111 MBA graduates, take your pick type situation. So for me, I didn't come to Sloan purely from a career next step kind of process. I came to it much more about arming myself for much more exciting senior sort of appointments, which are sort of individually unique, tailored for sort of different industries or different businesses that all have their own unique challenges.
Great. Thank you. I think we're running a little bit short on time, but maybe we can take one question if there's a really good one out there, Rayvon.
Absolutely. And thank you all for joining us today. No matter what time it is, evening, morning, depending on where you are in the world, we're happy to have the opportunity to connect with you. One of the questions that I was really intrigued by, if you can give me a second to find it, you all have been very engaged as far as the questions are concerned. For our panelists, there was a question about how did you come to the decision to make the sacrifice financially for that 1 year that you were going to be in the classroom? How did you, network, or rather leverage that with your family, for those of you that had family members move to Cambridge with you? And if you could all kind of just talk a little bit about that.
Yes, so the trade-offs and the ROI, I guess. Anyone want to share?
I'll quickly jump into that one. I really think the opportunity is just amazing. Whilst the ROI can't always be measured purely on sort of dollars and pounds, I challenge everyone to think not from an immediate return point of view, but much more, can you afford not to learn more? I think one of the biggest takeaway that I had beyond just purely Sloan and management related subjects is deeper knowledge, practical knowledge about AI, blockchain, things I can really talk knowledgeably about. And that's really helped my own career as a CFO of a technology startup to actually go out there and speak authoritatively about the stuff that I'm passionate about, that the things that I'm doing. I don't have a medical background, yet I'm in a medical startup because of some of the things that I learn about AI, the applicability of AI, as opposed to what you read on the internet, the things that, AI is going to take over the world from a perspective that is so ungrounded from science and technology. So for me, I can't imagine what I'll be like right now had I not gone through that year of talking to, not from people necessarily from a formalized class, but much more from people who are just in the Martin Trust Center for the Entrepreneurship, or anything just wider society within MIT Sloan as well as Boston. So yeah, that would be my big takeaway. It's to actually arm myself with things I actually had no idea I needed to know.
Anyone else have anything to add? Okay, well, we're coming up on time. I wanted to thank everyone for attending today, and a special thanks to our 3 panelists and to my 2 colleagues from behind the scenes. I really appreciate you all being here today, and I hope that you all stay in touch, stay connected. If you have other questions that didn't get answered, look out for other events. We'll also be having events on all of those 7 certificates that we talked about. But feel free to reach out to this email address, or check us out online. And I hope you all enjoy the rest of your days. Take care. Bye-bye.